I started that new job, and I think it was about after 3 weeks, maybe a month. And I remember, my loved ones looking at me and just seeing my eyes sunken 3 inches into my head, and just like the overwhelming amount of stress until like I couldn't do anything, where it was, going to the bathroom was the day's journey. I remember the first couple I went to, it was like, well, here's your anxiety medication, here's your antidepressant, good luck, and we'll see you in 3 months. Like that's what I heard from everybody. And I was like, I'm not depressed. There's something else wrong. Somebody help me. But it felt like, nobody could. There's a kindness, both emotionally and physically, that I didn't possess before this program. And now that I've been through it, I think living more gently and kindly with myself is something I'll do for the rest of my life.
How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, we have Preston, who has done an amazing job in recovery, and he's well on his way. He's pretty much got his life back. He's working 40, 50 hours a week, exercising again. And it's a very different Preston than I first met, not too long ago. I think it was like 9 months ago or something like that, 9-10 months ago. And at the time you were dealing with a bunch of issues, lots of symptoms, but super excited to bring this story to you guys so you can get inspired. This is a long COVID case, which is a lot of people get CFS from having long COVID. But Preston, want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, man. My name is Preston. I live in upstate New York in the United States. And like Miguel said, I came down with COVID in December of 2021. Found the program, I think like 8 or 9 months after, and applied the principles, and here I am. Man. So excited to be here, excited to do the interview and let people know about all the good stuff that comes from CFS Recovery.
Yeah, and this is really exciting. It's an interesting one because I actually haven't talked to you in a handful of months because you've been doing so well, but you've been doing your check-in calls with Junior, one of the coaches in the program, and he's been filling me in. And I was like, man, we got to share Preston's story. This is amazing. So it's so cool to have you on here. We appreciate your time, but let's rewind the clock a little bit, right? Because right now you're quite functional. You pretty much have your life back, but not too long ago, you were living a different life, very limited life. But when this all first hit you, what was that like? And what was it like leading up to getting COVID? Were you stressed to begin with? What was it? What was your lifestyle like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that I had a very high functioning lifestyle. Was exercising, 8 to 10 miles a week. I was running. I was lifting weights a few times a week. I was working a really intense job, sometimes pulling 60 plus hours a week. And then also just trying to manage, like so many of us, friendships, relationships with our partners and our family. And I didn't really know or understand that I had all of this stress that was weighing on me. I came down with COVID in December of 2021, and you just have that feeling that something's not right. My fatigue was crippling. The cognitive deficits were kind of scary. My family was definitely scared by that, and just kind of had these slew of really unexplainable and debilitating symptoms. And even through all of that, I don't think I had CFS yet. I still was just dealing with COVID. I went and got a job promotion. And I thought, okay, this is an opportunity I can't turn down. I'm assuming I'll just get better. So I put my job and my career in front of my health, and I paid for it dearly. I mean, I plummeted myself into the earth just with stress until I reached a point where I was pretty much bedbound for a short amount of time, just really, really debilitated. And yeah, man, you know how it is, Miguel. Like it's scary, it's frightening, and we know, so many of us with the analytical mind or the type A personality just wants to solve, and that actually just threw gasoline on the fire. Just kind of in that downward spiral, trying to resolve something, but just making it worse each and every day. So
yeah, got it. Yeah. So you got hit with COVID, and
Yeah.
for you, did it hit you hard right off the bat, or were you still kind of functional after, and then after a few weeks, it really hit you?
It hit me really hard. So like the first couple of days where I remember I was like I was watching Game of Thrones and I made like a hottie toddy, so like a little bit of whiskey with like black tea. And then I remember like a week later when I couldn't walk to my mailbox, I was like, oh my God, like you have to like take this seriously. I kind of thought that, I was, 26 or 7 at the time. And it's like, I'm stronger than this. Like, I can handle it. And then, things got really, really bad within those next few weeks. So,
Mm-hmm.
hit me hard. And then it just got progressively worse. And it took a long time to see any sort of improvement.
Yeah, and I'm sure it didn't help with the job promotion too. I hear so many stories, and myself included. We put that job promotion or leveling up that corporate ladder or wherever you are in
Yep.
the company, we put that above health because we think that opportunity won't ever come back, and then we
Yep.
end up paying dearly for it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's also like part of the problem too is from a societal standpoint. We're taught that production is key, right? To stay productive. I think many of us have production guilt. When we're not being productive, we feel lazy. We're hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up, but really we're just stacking our stress threshold against ourselves. So
Hmm.
yeah, couldn't agree more, man.
Yeah. So, what kind of symptoms did you initially feel, and then how long did it kind of take for you to go from somewhat functional to actually bedridden for a bit?
Yeah, so the fatigue, and again, all of these came in waves.
Yeah.
But I'd
Yeah.
say at its height, really crippling fatigue. I'd say 7, 8 at times, out of 10. Really intense brain fog, a lot of cognitive deficits, memory problems, just recalling words. POTS symptoms. This one was tough. I would say these two work together, but POTS and anxiety, hardcore because they kind of feed off one another. And
Mhm.
then, I'd say there was times daily panic attacks,
Mm.
stomach pain, digestive issues. That was a big one for a long time. Migraines, burning sensations, specifically like around my eyes. I had a lot of like eye
Mhm.
orbital pain, burning sensations, tinnitus, and one of the the frequent urination, which I don't understand why the nervous system does that, but yeah, that one too. It's like you pee like 12 times a day and you have no idea why.
Yeah,
so,
I
so,
remember
so that
that
one
one.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, got it. So quite a bit of stuff going on, and I guess those symptoms just started stacking on each other. And how long was it until you became really not functional and you had to stay in bed all the time?
yeah, so I started that new job, and I think it was about after 3 weeks when
Oh
I
wow.
just, I did it for maybe a month. And I remember, my loved ones looking at me and just seeing my eyes sunken 3 inches into my head, and just like the overwhelming amount of stress until like I couldn't do anything, where it was, going to the bathroom was the day's journey, and that was it. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, not fun for
Dang.
anybody.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember those days where I was like that too, where I wouldn't suggest this to people, but I made a tally of how many times I went to the washroom per day. And I actually had to get like a bucket beside my bed for the frequent urination because I could not walk to the washroom like 10 times a day. It was maximum 3 times that I could go to the washroom. One to brush my teeth and then, a couple other times. But yeah, when you're that bad, it hurts to move. And just lying in bed is a struggle some days, right?
Absolutely, man. And your mind works against you in so many ways. It's like, I think I remember one of your videos I watched where it's like, I used to be afraid of flipping over in my bed because I
Yeah.
thought that my heart couldn't take
Yeah.
it.
The
And
heart
like,
rate, you just hear it, feel it
you
pounding
and I
crazy.
can I can remember there'd be times where I'm like, I was afraid to go up and down the stairs because you're like, I don't know what my heart rate's going to do. Like you're just everything around you is just fear based, right? It's just no
Mhm.
way to live. Yeah. So those were definitely the dark times. Definitely.
Yeah. And was that about how long after getting COVID was that when you were in the
Um,
trenches?
yeah, I was like that for I wouldn't say the bedridden. I was bedridden for probably around a month, and then after that, just dealing with really intense symptoms for 4 or 5 more months.
Mhm.
Really, just not not having any inquiry or understanding of what was happening to me. So 4 or 5 more months of that. And that's when, and I don't know, because I've watched your interview once. I don't know if you're going to go to this next, but what were the techniques you used to try to help? And that's what those next 5 months were like, where it's like, I just tried everything to get better.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. What were the doctors saying as you were getting this checked out?
I see you talk about it a lot, and it's like, I remember the first couple I went to, it was like, well, here's your anxiety medication, here's your antidepressant, good luck, and we'll see you in 3 months. Like that's what I heard from everybody. And I was like, I'm not depressed. There's something else wrong. Somebody help me. But it felt like, nobody could. But I went to a chiropractor, functional medicine doctor, an acupuncturist, an endocrinologist, physical and speech therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, fasting, a low histamine diet, cognitive behavioral therapy. I was on 15 different supplements at one time. Yeah, man, nothing. Like, I mean, it was kind of, well, and it's sometimes it was self-fulfilling, where it's like, oh, I think this is going to work. And you kind of pour yourself into this like method of recovery.
Yeah, your fingers are crossed. You're like, hopefully this works.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't.
Well,
and then you're disappointed.
One, you feel bad too, because you see these, these doctors in whatever field, and they look at you in the eyes, and they really think that they can heal you, but they're just not equipped. The medical industry isn't equipped with that level of understanding to really help people in our position, with the hypersensitivity system. But yeah, I tried a lot of stuff and spent a lot of money.
You even tried bloodletting too, right?
Yeah. One time, they like, my iron levels were like a smidge too high, and they're like,
just a smidge, right? That's the thing. Yeah. It's like, let's try this drastic thing. It's just a smidge high.
Exactly. Which, and high, but at the time, I think
you'll try anything, right?
Yeah, you're so desperate, man, because you're like, one of my friends in the program is like, I'm just trying to make eggs, like I'm just trying to like make eggs in the morning and like, get through my day and like text people on my phone without having a migraine. It's like, I'll do anything to feel better, anything,
Yeah. So there's the physical struggle with all of this, but I think even more than that, it's like the mental struggle and emotional struggle. So how was it emotionally going through this process? Because I know it can be a little bit of a roller coaster when the doctors are saying, oh, we could try this, or you're normal. What was that like going through that process?
I mean, it's incredibly taxing, right? Like, I think, part of what you learn in the program is that so much of the stress that you put on yourself is from your emotional, it's from your emotions, right? So that was my problem, is I was just dumping gasoline on the fire all the time, because I couldn't stay calm, man, because it felt like, I'm not going to rest until I solve this problem. And again, I think like, many of us who get this illness like to drive our heads through problems, but this is something that you can't just like pummel your head through. You can't pound your head on the door until you knock this down, and that was my problem. That was my issue from the start. Just trying to solve this problem, how I solved problems in the past, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. More analyzing actually makes it worse. Whereas in the past, analyzing, that helped move you forward, that helped fix problems, because there's actually,
absolutely,
you can move forward in this, but it's so hard to measure, especially when you don't really understand what's going on. So, that's what makes it so tough. So for you, what was the next step, those next 5 months? You mentioned you started trying to learn things online. What kind of stuff did you find? And what was that like? What was that journey of seeking answers like?
So that was a tough journey too, because you're riding this emotional roller coaster of hope and then despair, and then hope and then despair. And you're kind of, especially with something like long COVID, that is at the time and still now is really misunderstood. You feel incredibly alone. You don't have anybody to kind of reflect with or talk to about it. So I'm alone, relatively healthy person before all of this, or a very healthy person. And now I have no means to solve my problem. I'm losing my job. I'm losing my friends. I'm losing parts of my identity, and just trying to figure out how to solve this. And I can't. So really freaking scary. And then I go online. I think I found the book, How Your Body Can Heal Your Mind. I think is what it was called. And that kind of introduced me into this because in my mind, I was like, all right, man, I crossed off all these other boxes. It's gotta be something else. Like it's gotta be not in my head, but something else in my brain has to be going wrong. So how your body can change your mind. And then I found like DNRS, the dynamic neural retraining system. And I
Hmm.
kind of was like on a trail, of like how I might be able to help myself. And then I found one of your videos about brain retraining. And I remember I was like, this is interesting. And then like 2 weeks straight, I watched like 150 of your videos.
You just
I
binge
watched like
watched it.
dude, I couldn't look at the screen, but I put my headphones in and I would just like sit there and I would listen because there's a difference in your content, that this isn't something you have to live with, whatever. We can resolve this, and there's actionable things that can be done, which I loved. And then after 2 weeks of that, I applied for the program and then joined up. So
Hmm.
that was kind of my journey in that piece of it. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask you about that. What made you decide to join Recovery Jumpstart versus, a lot of other programs out there? Obviously, you tried one in the past. What really drew you to this program and made you kind of take that leap of faith? Was it kind of out of desperation or it just made sense to you?
Well, again, I think it's a lot the way that you purvey your message in your videos. I think it very much speaks to the individual, and I think that you conduct yourself with a certain level of empathy that spoke to me. And I think you're somebody that really knows how to communicate the suffering that you went through, and I
Hmm.
felt like this is, and watching like the interviews too, you could tell that this is a program that nobody's trying to take my money. Nobody's trying to, you know what I mean, squeeze me dry. They want to see people improve because they feel indebted and responsible to the community. And that's kind of what drove me there. And I remember my girlfriend and I, after we did our interview, I was like, "Am I crazy for doing this shit? Like, am I crazy?" She's like, "No, man, you're not crazy. Like, I think this is it. I think this is it." And it was, and I'm grateful for it, every day since.
Hmm. Yeah, and I remember that conversation like it was just last week. It's crazy.
Yeah,
We were talking before this how fast time flies and what a difference even 9 or 10 months can make. Because back then you were living a very different life, very different headspace. I mean, I feel like you always had hope that you could get better. You knew there
yeah,
was a solution out there, which is
yeah.
what caused you to continue seeking answers. And then, luckily you came across my content and it made sense for you. But for you, fast forward, we get you into the program. How impactful was it being on calls with other people in similar situations as you? How helpful is
Oh,
that to be part of like that small cohort?
it was extremely impactful, man. Like it's, I swear to God, I have lifelong friends that I have made in this program, like that I'm going to keep. But you know, so much of recovery, you feel utterly alone. Like the despair and the loneliness and the solace is part of the part that's just so difficult to deal with. And then you have this group of individuals where I think you and the coaches do a great job of filtering the content too, where it's like this is a place where if I'm going to my Discord app, I'm going to see something funny, I'm going to see something inspiring, or I'm going to see something informative. And to have that space, man, is you couldn't ask for anything more when you felt so alone for so long. Um, and I'm sorry, I got a lot to say about this one, but like
Go for
I
it, man.
also
Just as much as you can. Yeah.
like I also like when you have so many questions all the time, and especially because of these type A personalities that you just like. What I loved about the calls was that I asked questions until I was exhausted, until I exhausted all of my questions, and then it reached a point where I could answer my own questions, and then I started answering other people's questions, right? And like that, it's similar to like people talk about like AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, where it's like you stay sober by helping others. Like you help yourself recover by helping others recover. Like it's very synonymous in that way. So I love that portion of it, and then an underrated portion of it too. I'm sorry, I'm chewing the air, but an underrated portion of it too is that like by communicating with these group of people, they shared like the group knowledge is unbelievable, and people have shared with me things I would have never found on myself. And so much of recovery is like finding just a few techniques that work for you, And without this group, I may have never found those techniques. So it was huge, man. It was huge.
Yeah, and you've done really well implementing these techniques, especially our golden rule in recovery of just responding well to symptoms. And I know for you, the biggest thing was the brain fog, right?
Yeah.
The brain fog was huge for you. And then once we started responding well to that, because we realized it's not even painful, it's just like annoying, right? And
Yeah.
once we dealt with that, then it started to lift. And that's when you made leaps and bounds. But you're so right about the group aspect. I think having other people you get to know on a personal level, they almost act as a mirror for you in recovery. So you could see where people are doing things right, where they could improve a little bit, and then you could take that and apply it to your own recovery. But also, they'll be asking questions that you're thinking of that you didn't even remember to ask. So, on these calls, people are asking you like, holy cow, like, yeah, I deal with that. Whoa, I deal with that too. So by the end of the call, it's like, all my questions have been answered. This is great.
I'm good. Well, and that it's something that like the friends that I made in the program, what we talked about, it's like, I'm going to treat myself the way that you treat me. Like the humility and kindness that you're showing me, I'm going to use that as an example for how I need to treat myself, which I think we forget to do so often. Right. And when we ask our friends and families about it, who really don't understand the illness, it's tough to kind of get that humility. But in this space, man, it just seems like it's everywhere. Everybody wants to help, man. It's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I've really tried to do a good job filtering who we let into the program too, just to make sure, it doesn't turn into one of these CFS forums where everybody's just venting and all that. But for you, what were some of your early wins where you're like, wow, this stuff, it actually works. I'm actually making progress.
Yeah. For me,
I remember a few off the top of my head, but I'll let you share.
Yeah. Go. I mean, like for me, it's like so much of it is mindset, man. Like I'm sorry if it's a tangent, but like I feel like so much of recovery, it's like 85% mindset, like 10% pacing and learning how to pace, and then 5% like adjusting to recovery. And I just remember my mindset just shifting and moving. And I remember like I slid down the stairs on my socks, like on the edge of like the of the handlebar there. And I remember getting to the bottom of the stairs and just kind of like, like whistling about my day. And I was like, what the hell was that? I was like, like where has this guy been for like a year or 6 months? I was like, that person's not bogged down by this COVID crap. Like they're just living their life, and like that one, it's so small, but that was a big one for me. Another one too was like, I felt like when I was like cooking or cleaning or just trying to exist, I had to be kind of like muted. I had to have music. I had to have podcasts, something that could like keep me away from my thoughts. So when I noticed that I could just do things without being distracted and just kind of accept my state as it was, that was also a really big win for me, kind of early on.
And I remember you had a win. I can't remember what week it was in. I think it was 3 or 4, maybe 5, but you went to this fair, right? Where you did a bunch of walking.
It
was a parade, something like that.
It was to support domestic violence. It's called Willow Domestic Violence. And I went and I was really like, it was only like a 1.5 mile walk. But I was really anxious about it because I was socializing and meeting people. And then, I remember with my girlfriend, I did it like nothing. And I was like, well, this is crazy, man. Cause I couldn't walk, a 1/2 mile if I wanted to for the past 6 months. It was crazy. Yeah.
And you did that without your body really punishing you. And you were like, holy cow, I'm more capable than I thought. And I think that's the mind shift a lot of people have, is that first taste of doing something they haven't done in a long time that they thought like it would take years to build up to. And for them to do it, it's like a paradigm shift that it's actually possible.
Absolutely. It's almost like you do these things and you almost prove to yourself how brave you are, right? Because you've punished yourself for so long. But if you're brave and if you tackle these challenges head on and respond well, the rest is history, man. So much of it is just that concerted bravery that we all possess, it's all there.
Totally. And speaking of bravery, if we rewind the clock a little bit, was there ever a time in your recovery where, obviously everybody goes through like a really dark phase where they're like, can I even recover? Is it even possible? Is there a solution? Did you ever
Mhm.
get to that point where you almost gave up hope, but not quite, but it was like just that point of extreme frustration?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'll say first, I got COVID while I was in the program again, which was like
Oh yeah, I remember that.
really,
Yeah.
which was really scary. But again, I had the principles available, so I did that. But I think maybe what we don't talk about enough is that I think that this like darkness and this shadow that'll be cast over us, it kind of like there's daily moments that they come up, right? And what I like to tell people is that it's not like this one, cataclysmic moment that it's like, oh, I'm going to recover, right? Or I'm never going to get better. It's making a concerted decision every single day because like 9, 10, 11, 12 times throughout the day, man, I'm getting penetrated by these thoughts that like, man, like you can't do this still. Oh, you're going to stay sick, right? So it's just like having this stubbornness, right? So I mean, there was plenty of times, Miguel, a ton of times, man, where I never thought I was going to get better. And when you post in these wins and you see these recovery channels, people don't think you go through that. They think it's all hunky dory, but it's like it's an everyday battle, man. Every single day,
Mhm.
every
Yeah,
day.
and I love what you said about that. It is a very conscious decision. That's what it has to be, at least in the beginning, until it
Yeah,
starts being automatic. But you do have to correct your thoughts because it starts to run. Your mind starts to run on a negative bias of thinking the worst case scenarios. If I walk too much, if I go up these stairs too fast, if I even go up these stairs,
yep,
is my heart rate going to stay high for the next 24 hours or what's going to happen? So there's all these like what ifs, and you
yep,
have to consciously go in there and correct those. We call it swatting it away,
yep.
or bringing yourself to your safe space, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it is a very conscious decision. You have to wake up every day knowing what the mission is, no matter how thick the adjustment period is.
Yeah,
And you've been through some pretty thick ones, right? But
absolutely.
you never broke, right? But you bent, right? And I tell people this, I like to say to my videos now, bend but don't break. It's okay to bend. You're going to have some days that really test you. But as long as you hang in there and keep fighting that good fight and you stick to the plan, which is respond well, you'll be good, right?
No, man, I think you're absolutely right. It's like I I think what really helped me was in one of your video modules, you put out like the principles of recovery, and I told myself if I stuck to those principles, that there's no way I could stay sick, and it was belief in the recovery path,
Mm-hmm.
belief in yourself, be willing to let go, and having a support system, right? And as long as I held near and dear to those, no matter how bad it got, no matter whether I got COVID or had an argument with a family member or had some external force of stress that kind of like pushed me off of my path. Didn't matter, man, because I had those principles
Mm-hmm.
available that would always keep me there. So yeah, that always kept me on the path.
Wow, you really did your studying because I remember exactly which video module that is, and I remember creating that. Yeah,
Bro, like
so
I'm
true.
telling you, dude, I had, so I remember it was like our first or second week, like you had us get a whiteboard, right, and talk
Yeah.
about like, okay, here are your goals. So I put my recovery principles on that, and then I started building out, like I had a wall at one point, dude, where it covered a half of my wall where it was just like proof of recovery and advice. And like I would like to, like anybody who's in the program who's going through these things, like continue to utilize the things you learned in the first 6 weeks. If you continue to build upon that foundation, like you're only going to get better faster. Like, and I just had constant reminders of like how far I came, and like what I needed to get better. So I
Hmm.
always tell people that.
That's epic. I think that's why, you know, your recovery has been so great. It's like you were feeding your mind all of these things, whether it was being on the calls or implementing it or seeing it as a reminder, like all over your walls. For
Yeah,
me, because I'm a very visual person, I just imagine my doctor standing right in front of me saying, it's about your response to the symptoms. It's about your response to
yeah,
the symptoms. So now it's burned into my mind because I've replayed that thousands of times in my head. I don't even need to think about it.
absolutely.
Even nowadays, for anything in life, I see him there. It's like, how's your
Yeah,
response to, this stuff, all these fires going on with CFS recovery? I imagine him there, and it's very
abs-
applicable to life.
yep. And then you put them out, man. Like I I do want to say though quickly that like even I've got things on my wall and I respond well, that like I'm not special. Like I didn't do anything like inherently great. Like you don't have to be special to get better from this. You just have to apply the principles and commit to them.
Hmm.
With
Yeah.
complete and utter commitment, and you'll get better. So
Yeah. And just so people get an idea of something that you learned uh, during your time in the program, for example, somatic tracking, like what's an example of that you learned from somebody else?
yeah, so like actually like going through the process of like what you would do and how you would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's the idea of separating your thoughts from the sensations, because basically the sensations are just sensations, but the thoughts is like pouring gasoline on them, right? It's those wild thoughts that can make you think you're having a heart attack or having these terrible things happen to you. So it's really a practice of just focusing on the sensation, separate it from the thought, and allowing yourself to just sit with it until it finally kind of like dissipates. But really it's just allowing you to allow feelings to kind of filter through you. And like to me that was a huge shift for me, man. Like once I unlocked how to do that, like if I'm in the grocery store and I'm like, oh my god, like this is too much, I could kind of like tune into my somatic tracking, and like I was cool 30 seconds later. So yeah, that's a large part of recovery, man. Like just finding those little tools that work for you,
Hmm.
because there are so many, but it's we're all individuals that need little pieces here and there along the way.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing is just learn to be neutral about those symptoms or sensations, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
prior to like even my doctor teaching me about this stuff and even you guys learning about it, there's an initial like knee-jerk reaction almost to the symptoms, like, oh, palpitation, uh-oh, heart attack, is it coming? When is it gonna hit?
Yeah.
When is it gonna hit me? But you learn to, like you said, create separation.
Well, it's the autonomic nervous system is automatic, right? Like it's something that we can't necessarily control, right? It's funny because that's kind of how our thoughts function as well, right? You can't control your initial thought, but you can't control your reaction to that thought, right? And then in the same way, you can't control that initial sensation, but you can control your reaction to that sensation. And that's the glue of this whole methodology, right? Like if you just respond well, man, you're golden.
Exactly, exactly. And
Hell yeah.
touching more on the program, um, how much of an impact was it being able to reach out to the coaches and get some like specific guidance on specific situations, like in the Discord and even on the check-in calls? How much of a
Mhm.
difference did that make?
That to me, that was another game changer in my recovery. I remember when we had our check-in call, the first call we had, I remember telling you, I was like, I'm so lost. Like I have no plan of really how to get better. And it's because I didn't understand the illness, but also like I just didn't have the structure that I needed, right? I had Junior or Adrian and others to just say, listen, man, like this is your cap for your physical exertion. This is your cap for your mental exertion, right? And for somebody to not only explain that to you, but also hold you accountable, that was huge for me. And then in the same breath, it's like, somebody say, no, 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 man, do a few more push-ups. You're okay. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. No, no, no. You can go and like read another 30 pages of Harry Potter. You're fine. You know what I mean? Like it was, that was huge. Just like also we all spiral sometimes, right? Like we all like go in these terrible like negative spaces, and just being able to check with a coach and be like, hey, listen, like I've had a migraine for like the entire day. I've only been able to walk to my mailbox, but like my grandparents want me to come over and do ABC for them, and a coach to be like, no, screw that, dude. Like, do not do that at all. Like it's like, it's nice to have somebody to be like, nah, bro, like just chill out. So that was an important piece for me too.
Yeah, definitely like those unpredictable scenarios where it's like it could be a toss up, could be 50-50. If I do it, I'm screwed. If I don't do it, I'm
Yeah,
screwed. I have no idea what to do. So to have that like kind of safety net person there
absolutely.
just to kind of give you reassurance, but also they're able to look at your situation from an outside perspective and be like,
Hmm.
all right, this is definitely the better option. Go with this. Whereas it's a blurry line when you're in it.
Dude, knowledgeable and objective reassurance, like that's what we need, because like the illness is so misunderstood. Like, you can't go to a facility, you can't go to a doctor's office, you really can't go online and find a lot of information about this thing, so being able to talk to people who've like experienced it from soup to nuts, like from the onset of the issue to now being able to live a full life, like whose word would you trust more, so it's really, really important for me.
Yeah. And thinking back to when you were in the trenches and you were in a pretty dark place and really just extremely lost and
Mhm.
confused, probably a bit scared and maybe even getting to the point where like, am I asking yourself, am I ever going to get better? What would you tell your old self? And if someone is watching this right now, they're in that place as well, they're lost. What would you tell them for
I
inspiration?
mean, oh man, I mean, I think I I would probably ask myself to honestly answer like this question, like, or a series of questions like, do you think you're a better person, after going through this illness, right? Like, do you think you're going to get back more often? Do you think you're going to love deeper? Do you think you're going to possess more patience, right? And I think what I'm trying to say is like, what really flips the script in this illness and recovery is realizing that things happen for us and not to us. And once you kind of trade this victim mentality for gratitude, that's when you gain control, and that's when change can really occur. So for folks who are out there listening to this, that means that like there's a glimmer of hope that you can get better. And what I'm saying is like that can snowball into something real when you start to you know accept your situation for what it is and be grateful for what you have in this moment day to day.
Mm-hmm. And I have this question I ask people nowadays. I've been asking a lot more, but if you were the creator of the universe or whatever, you're this universal force and you wanted someone to be super grateful, super resilient, just very appreciative of life and be able to squeeze the most out of the lemon of life, what would you put
Hmm.
that person through in order to create those characteristics? You wouldn't give them
Yeah.
an easy life. You wouldn't give them a seamless experience on this planet. You give them hardship, you give them challenges to overcome. And in doing that, in showing them the kind of dark side of life, they're able to
Yep.
appreciate the light that much more because the whole universe works in opposites. So I've seen it a lot. The more intense, the more extreme the situation, and when people get to the other side, the more appreciative they are. Right. So
I,
the deeper you are in the fire, the stronger it molds you.
I think you shared with us a great quote. I might butcher it, but it's like, within the deepest cave is where we find the, yeah, what is it? I think you
Yeah.
probably know it off the top of
It's
your head.
Joseph Campbell. In the cave which you fear to enter lies the treasure you most deeply seek.
Exactly, right? And you can't find that unless you're in these really remote and darkest places of yourself. And in an illness like this, you're going to be there. But it's also the metaphor of like, if you're who's a better boater, somebody who goes out on like a beautiful crisp day and the breeze gently puts them by, or the person
Right.
who's digging across with 40-mile-an-hour winds trying to get across, right? It's like, that's life experience. And it is so like gut wrenching when you're in the midst of it because you don't know that you're going to get better, right? But by just sticking to the plan, man, and like having confidence in it, you inevitably get there.
Yeah. And tying that into your life right now, how different is your life now in terms of just how you respond to stress or the way you see life? I mean, what are some of the biggest differences in those areas?
It's crazy, man. So, and I guess, are you asking like before CFS and anything, or like when I was in the CFS too?
Um,
Um,
yeah, like when you were, or how different is your outlook on and your perspective on life and the way you deal with
oh,
adversity? I guess
yeah,
versus before getting sick.
yes. Okay, no, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I would say it's quite different. I think a lot of people who get stuck in CFS, they're running a sprint, they're not running a marathon. And I was one of those people where you know I thought I could maintain a certain pace of life that was not that was not going to work. And now I definitely think that I live easier, and not like easier on myself, if that makes sense. There isn't this self-induced stress to like do everything, or to tie these expectations to myself that only I'm creating in my head. There's a kindness, both emotionally and physically, that I didn't possess before this program. And now that I've been through it, I think living more gently and kindly with myself is something I'll do for the rest of my life. It's kind of like, I think Raylene, she has a great YouTube channel, and she talks about like pacing doesn't stop, once you get better, like you need to like continue to do it, because like everybody should pace, right? Like we're not meant to just go a million miles an hour every day of our lives. So yeah, excited to continue to kind of deploy those methods.
So you're just much better at pacing yourself and not letting the
Dude,
stress kind of get to that point of no return and just burning the candle on both ends.
It's also like you think about stress in a different way, right? Like before, maybe stress was being stuck in traffic, and like like raising your fist to somebody and swearing at them. Now, and like when you go through CFS, it's like, no, stress is like I haven't been out of bed in 3 days, and like I'm like I can't pay my bills, and like I am like I physically don't understand what's happening to my body, and no doctors can help me. Like that's stress. And like now I go to work, and like I go with people, and they're like, oh, I didn't hand this assignment, was supposed to be in tomorrow. I'm like, that's not stress. Like this is not that stressful, you guys. Like it's just like you just look at it all differently.
Yeah, and that's what I say a lot too. After recovery, it's almost like you're living life on easy mode, well, compared to what you've just been through, right? Because I remember when I got out of the hospital, I was in a lot of debt, couldn't work, still feeling symptoms, but still the fact that I could walk around and I knew what was going on, and I wasn't completely lost. It was so much better than where I was. So it's like your tolerance for stress is through the roof after going through
Well, and
this.
it's like you feel like you're living on borrowed time. There's like a part of you, where you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to live a relatively normal life again. And only people who go through this really know what that means. Where it's like, I don't think I can go to social events. I don't think I can work a full job anymore. I don't think I can do all of these normal things. And then once you get it again, it's just like every day it's like, holy crap, like this is, I don't know, it's awesome. And like, and I don't know. Yeah. And you'll get
Every
there.
day is icing on the cake. That's how I put it. And my
You're
friends
playing with
remind me of that sometimes, because sometimes I'll get stressed and they're like, Miguel, what are you stressing for? Remember you said that this is all just icing on the cake. Every day after you got out of the hospital, that was icing on the cake and cherry on top and sprinkles. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I'm like, you're right. You are right,
dude. We're playing with house money, man. We're playing with house money. Like,
pretty much. That's how I feel, dude. And I think when you have that perspective, it's a lot easier to achieve that gratitude than a lot more easy to achieve gratitude now than if I didn't go through all of that. Because there was a time when, I mean, you and we probably wished we could even just sit up straight and have a conversation like this, right?
And I also don't want to make it seem like it's like this, like this rosy experience day to day, and like, I'm gratitude and there's birds on my shoulders singing. Like, it's not like that, dude. Like, it's like the way that I had to do it was like, if my positive thoughts outweighed my negative thoughts 51-49, that meant I was getting better. Because like sometimes, like you said, it's like you're just bombarded by this negativity and you just have to pull yourself out of it. It's like it's almost like just a game of resilience. Like, how often can you alter your thought patterns? How often can you respond well? And if you do it often enough, like, you don't have to be perfect. That's what moves the needle. But that consistently for months and months at a time, like that's what changes it.
Exactly. Right. And I just came up with a quote right now. It's like, when you've lived in the fire for so long, it becomes much easier to dance in the rain, right? And
cool you off.
Life ain't always sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna have rainy days, but nothing can be as bad as being in those trenches in that fire.
No, and but again, I guess to like roll it all together, it's this feeling of seclusion and vulnerability and misunderstanding, right? With like whether that's the health system or what's happening with your body. And when you go into this program, so much of that's resolved. It's you kind of get these answers about what's happening to your body. You work through these processes of understanding your thought patterns. You get the knowledge from the coaches, and then like you put that all together, and then it's just really having confidence and trusting in the process, and then you can come out on the other side. In my experience.
Exactly, and that's what we see with so many others as well. So for you to wrap up this great chat, what would you say to someone who's watching this right now and they're potentially on the fence of wanting to do something like Recovery Jumpstart, and they tried so many things in the past that didn't work, but they didn't have that personalization to the program? What would you say to them if they're on the fence of trying something like Recovery Jumpstart?
I like, I hit me up. You know what I mean? Like, go in the comments. Like, this is the real deal, man. And like, I know that the whole premise of like changing your thought patterns to like change your life, like it kind of sounds far-fetched, but like like, I'm somebody who's tried like hundreds of different methods. I have gone to a lot of different people to try to resolve these issues, and this is the only thing that truly worked for me. So like, if you're having like issues thinking that this is real, like, hit me up, talk to me. I'm a normal dude. Like, I will let you know like that this is the real thing. And like, if you're on the fence, like, take the call, man. Take the call and like talk to Miguel, talk to Junior, talk to Adrian, Krista. Like, these are good people who want to help you get better, and they'll prove that to you, and it doesn't cost you anything to just sit and chat with them. So do it.
Yeah. And you've done very well in the program. I think we met less than a year ago. I think we met in November, October, something like that.
October. So yeah, man.
Was only about 10 months ago. Yeah, only about 10 months ago. And it's a very different Preston than
yeah.
It was very
brain
foggy, fatigue, palpitation, anxiety, Preston. And very different Preston that we have today.
And I would even say, man, like, it wasn't even 10 months. It's probably closer to like 6 or 7 that I really started to like live a normal life. We just hadn't had a chance to get on and chat with each other, like it's, yeah, man, it's I would say it's night and day, man. Like, when I called you that first time, I was on like I was like, this is it. Like, this is my last thing I'm going to try. And thank God I did.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you sharing your story with us. We went into depth. This whole talk was over an hour. So really appreciate your time and sharing your experiences with people. I'm sure people have gotten a lot of value out of this. So if you guys did learn a few things and were inspired here and there throughout this talk, just comment down below. What was your favorite part? What was the biggest takeaway from all of this? And we help people just like Preston all the time from all over the world, dealing with stuff like long COVID, CFS, fibromyalgia, hypersensitive nervous system issues. So if you've had your tests and scans done and the doctors are saying, oh, you're perfectly fine, kind of like they did to you, Preston, and nothing seems to be working, click the link down below, apply for the program, see if it's even a good fit for you. If it is, we'll hop on a call and see if we can actually help you. But always remember, you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living life with thriving health. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, Preston.
Thanks, man.